Let's talk to Ann Widdecombe and find out what she makes of it all. Ann, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Very nice to see you. Lots to talk about this morning. I mean, how is it possible? Let's kick off with Keir Starmer and his hopeless government. How is it possible that a lawyer who supposedly knows the law, who was the top prosecutor in this country, gets advice from lawyers about banning elections, and then suddenly works out that either that advice was wrong or that you shouldn't have ignored it, and in fact it turns out that banning elections is illegal?
Well, it's a very good question. Indeed, it's one that I've asked on my Substack this week.
Yeah.
Because he would have had legal advice. The first legal advice was the one that he relied on for cancelling the elections. And the second legal advice is obviously the one that he's had to face up to, which says he can't do that. Now, I would like to see from the Attorney General all the legal advice that has been received on this properly published, and so that we can understand exactly what went on. Now, this is not just a win for reform, big though that is. This is a win for democracy, because in some of those areas, elections would have been delayed for quite literally years, not a few months, but years. And therefore, people were effectively disenfranchised. They couldn't vote. And that is wholly wrong. And therefore, as I say, I don't understand any more than you do how a lawyer could actually believe that it was an okay thing to do. But let's see the advice and let's see who advised whom.
And do you think that Steve Reid bears some culpability here, that he was kind of pushing this on people, presumably having also seen advice that suggested it was okay to do? I mean, is he in the line of fire here? Should he resign?
Oh, well, everybody's in the line of fire who had anything to do with this at all, but ultimately the buck stops with Starmer. There is no such thing as an individual Secretary of State who could say we're not having elections. It just wouldn't happen. The buck stops firmly on Starmer's desk, and I don't think we should let him get out of that. He's very good at chucking people under a bus. Very good at it. He chucks his advisors under buses. He chucks his old pals and the Lords under buses. And he would be delighted to pass this off onto another minister. The answer's no, Keir. Stops with you. I mean, he's called Never Hear Keir. I do wonder if on this occasion he wasn't here because he was away with the fairies.
That's absolutely right. I mean, he doesn't take responsibility for anything. He didn't know anything about Jimmy Savile. Let's go all the way back to that. He didn't know anything about Peter Mandelson. He didn't know anything, as you say, about Lord Doyle. He didn't apparently know anything about the elections being delayed. Every single time he gets asked a question, he just doesn't seem to have an answer. It's hopeless.
Well, I mean, only one of two things is possible. Either he was told all these things and couldn't be bothered to study it carefully. Security reports, for example, when it comes to Mandelson. Either he was told these things and didn't bother to study it, or he genuinely wasn't told these things. But if he wasn't, then that happens so often across so many different departments that it's high time he got his act together.
Well, you would think so. Should we talk, Kelvin, about the new announcements, I think, that are coming out this morning? Anne, I don't know whether you're involved in them, but Reform, we believe, are having a press conference about 11 o'clock this morning to unveil a few job titles, right, Kelvin?
Yes, and I wonder what your view is that Mr. Jenrick becomes Reform's Shadow Chancellor, Zahawi becomes Reform's Foreign Secretary, Zia Youssef becomes Home Affairs, and Richard Tice becomes a mixture of business and energy. Now, there's two ways of looking at this. First of all, you say, well, that could compete with any of the front benches or the benches opposite or sideways. The other way to look at it is Reform becoming kind of... if you go to football matches, they start chanting against the other side by saying, "Are you Crystal Palace in disguise?" And I was just wondering whether you'd say, "Are you a Tory in disguise?"
No, look, you can't have it both ways.
Right.
People have been saying to us for a long time, and I strongly suspect you have, that, yes, we've got some very good ideas, but we haven't got the experience. We haven't got a clue. We've never run a government. Oh, no, we won't be able to do it. Now we do have experience, and people are saying, oh, well, you shouldn't be taking it from the Tories. Now, my view is very straightforward. I'm wholly against any sort of pact with the Conservatives because most of them are not right. Or you say unite the right, but most of them are not. And we had that very telling Ashcroft poll, which showed that whereas 81% of reform supporters would much prefer to see Badenoch to Starmer, only 53% of Conservatives would have wanted to see Farage as opposed to Starmer. Otherwise, they're simply not right. Some of them are. And we're getting those, and we're building strength, and we're building experience. And again, people are always saying, your profession is always saying it. Well, we don't know who the spokesman on such and such is. How do we find them? Where do we get an authoritative statement? Well, you'll know now. So, we're doing the things you asked. We're getting in the experience. We're distributing citizenship. What's your big problem?
And can I just correct you on that? I have never suggested that we take Zahawi and make him Foreign Secretary for reform. I, to be honest with you, I think it's a disastrous appointment, and I'm massively hostile to it. I'm not hostile to the ideas generally. Actually, funnily enough, the reason that reform will win has got nothing to do with those people sitting alongside him. It is 101% to do with the cleverest politician of my time, including Margaret Thatcher, i.e. Nigel Farage. What he has done is beyond stunning. The idea that he was literally on a bicycle making his way around, knocking on people's doors and being rejected, and today is anywhere between 25 and 30% of the polls, is the most extraordinary aspect of politics by 1,000 miles. I just have a question mark, really, over whether some of these appointments are necessarily the greatest of appointments, regardless of where they come from.
Well, first of all, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. You say you think that Zahawi's a disastrous appointment. Well, we shall see. And we shall see in fairly short order because there are an awful lot of issues around foreign affairs. So, we're going to see. And I don't think it's any good saying, well, this won't work or that won't work. We have a cadre of MPs and former MPs with that experience, and we're now tapping into it and using it. And I've no doubt at all that between now and the next general election, which is still 3 years away, which causes me to mop my brow a bit, but it's still 3 years away before we can get rid of this government.
True.
But between now and then, there'll be a reform reshuffle in exactly the same way that the other parties have reshuffles.
Yes, I suppose so. I mean, the other problem, I suppose, is if you're starting to appoint people to portfolios and jobs when they don't actually necessarily have a seat in the House of Commons, is that also an issue? I mean, I remember talking to Nigel Farage about the whole falling out with Ben Habib thing, which was when Ben Habib didn't win a seat and he was deputy leader. And Nigel said to him, well, now that you're no longer, or you're not part of the Westminster team, I think we need to have a deputy leader who is. So he gave it to Tice, which seems fair enough, doesn't it?
Well, look, Tice was the very, very natural choice because he, of course, had led the party during that period when Nigel Farage was not leading us. Tice had led the party. Tice kept it going. Tice made sure that we had a party to hand over to Nigel Farage. So he was a very, very natural choice. Now, to come back to your more important point, which is, spokesmen who are not actually sitting in the Commons, I don't think that matters at this stage at all, because all you are doing is you are having somebody who will say what reform policy is when we are forming a government. You are not actually having somebody standing up in the Commons answering to the Commons. No,
quite. Let's talk a little bit about the figures that have come out today. Youth unemployment at a highest level for 11 years. Unemployment generally at the highest level for 5 years. Kelvin McKenzie here telling us that it's only going to get worse. Employers just don't want to hire anyone right now. What's the answer?
Well, I mean, the answer for a start is not to make it so unattractive to employers.
Yeah.
I mean, I do not understand, Rachel Reeves, who's supposed to be an economist, I don't understand her mentality in saying, well, we'll make it more difficult for employers to employ. We'll put up national insurance, and we'll introduce a whole raft of so-called employee protection measures, and we'll actually make it very difficult for employers to employ. Now, in a sensible economy, you try to keep taxes low, you try to encourage employers, and that is just not what is happening at the moment. I don't blame anybody for saying, I'm not taking on anybody else at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's right. And what about the business of Restore Britain, Advance UK, the differences on the right now of politics, which are being sort of, carved out, if you like? Is that going to be a problem for reform, do you think?
No, I don't think it'll be any problem at all, because I think come the election, people who want to vote that way are going to vote for the party which has the best chance of winning. And there is no doubt at all that that's reform. So I don't think it's going to be a problem. I read, and I admire Rupert Lowe, but I read his, what I suppose you might call manifesto, his opening statement, and some of it was wild, and some of it was undeliverable. And I think people will see that, and they will understand that reform is going to be a responsible party of government with very clear set of aims, which we will achieve, not just wildly proclaim.
And any role for yourself, Anne, that you're looking at?
Sorry?
Are you looking at any role for yourself? I know you've said before that you don't want to be an MP anymore, but would there be something you could do?
Look, Mike, I am 78 now. By the time a general election comes along, I'll be 81. By the time the following election comes around, I'll be 85. Now,
nearly as old as Kelvin.
Honestly, no is the answer. I'm going to do everything that Nigel asked me to do, but I am absolutely not looking to stand for Parliament.
Okay. Ann Widdecombe, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Wonderful woman. And it's a shame in a way that she can't find something. I mean, you're not exactly a spring chicken without wishing to give anything away.
Well, in fact,
you haven't stopped, have you?
Well, or young Anne, as I like
young
to refer,
Anne, as you like to call her.
Refer to her. No, look, if you're lucky enough to have the genes, the DNA, just push on. Yeah. Just push on. And you got to. The alternative is much worse, actually. So I would urge her. I think with her clarity of thought, actually, I would have thought that there is a very good role for wherever she. The only reason I'm against the Reform's Foreign Secretary is that he got caught up in some terrible shambles in which he was the Chancellor.